Distinguished viewers, 3 days ago, Canadian Pacific, Kansas City, announced an $800 million investment in American manufacturing that nobody in Washington saw coming. But the real story is not the investment itself. It is what this railway corporation has been quietly building for the past 3 years while President Trump waged his tariff war. CPKC now operates the only single-line rail network connecting Canada, the United States, and Mexico across 32,000 kilometers of track. And in the past 6 months, something extraordinary has happened. Companies are using this network to bypass the United States entirely. Canadian oats travel 4,800 kilometers from Saskatchewan to Mexico without clearing American customs. Aluminum, refined fuels, French fries, furniture, and fruit now move directly between Canada and Mexico using American soil as nothing more than transit space. The chief executive of CPKC calls it a land bridge across America. Trump's tariffs were designed to force manufacturing back into the United States. Instead, they created the infrastructure for North American trade to function without American participation. This is not theory, this is operational reality as of January 2026. When Canadian Pacific announced its intention to acquire Kansas City Southern in March 2021, the strategic logic seemed straightforward. Merge two historic rail companies, create operational efficiencies, capture market share in a consolidating industry. The United States Surface Transportation Board approved the $31 billion transaction, and in April 2023, the merger became final. At that moment, CPKC became the first and only railway corporation in history to connect 3 nations under single-line operations. No interchanges, no rail transfers, seamless movement from Vancouver to Mexico City. But what appeared to be a conventional industry consolidation has evolved into something far more consequential. The Trump administration's tariff regime transformed CPKC from a logistics provider into a strategic bypass system for companies seeking to avoid American customs exposure altogether. Consider the timeline. February 2025, Trump imposed 25% tariffs on goods entering the United States from both Canada and Mexico using emergency powers under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Those tariffs created immediate cost pressure for manufacturers operating across integrated North American supply chains. Companies responded in 2 ways. Some absorbed the costs and passed them to consumers. Others began exploring how to restructure their operations to minimize tariff exposure. CPKC offered a third option: trade directly between Canada and Mexico using infrastructure that crosses American territory but never enters American customs jurisdiction. The company did not invent this concept, but it built the physical capacity to execute it at scale. In February 2025, CPKC opened the Patrick J. Ottensmeyer International Railway Bridge, connecting Laredo, Texas to Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. The bridge features a double track span and advanced scanning technology donated by CPKC to United States Customs and Border Protection under an expedited donation agreement finalized in December 2024. This infrastructure upgrade was not designed for American benefit. It was designed to accelerate the movement of goods that never stop on American soil. The bridge processes trains carrying cargo between Canada and Mexico that pass through the United States as in bond shipments. These shipments are sealed, they're scanned, but they are not subjected to American import duties because they are not entering American commerce. They're simply transiting through American geography. This distinction has become the foundation of a new trade corridor that is reshaping North American logistics, and it is growing rapidly. The mechanics of the land bridge are precise. A train departs from Saskatchewan loaded with Canadian oats destined for Mexican food processors. That train travels south through the CPKC network, crossing into the United States at Portal, North Dakota. It continues through American states including Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. At Laredo, it crosses the Ottensmeyer Bridge into Mexico and delivers its cargo in Monterrey or Mexico City. The entire journey covers 4,800 kilometers. The cargo crosses 2 international borders, but it never clears United States customs because it is moving under in bond status. The shipper avoids American tariffs. The buyer receives Canadian product at prices unaffected by United States trade policy, and CPKC collects revenue for providing the service. This is not a loophole. It is a legitimate customs procedure that has existed for decades. What changed is the scale at which companies are now using it. CPKC Chief Executive Keith Creel confirmed in a May 2025 interview that the railway has become a land bridge across America. He listed the products now moving regularly between Canada and Mexico on CPKC rails. Aluminum from Canadian smelters to Mexican manufacturers, refined fuels from Canadian refineries to Mexican distributors, French fries from Canadian processors to Mexican consumers, furniture from Canadian factories to Mexican retailers, fruit moving in both directions depending on seasonal harvests. These are not low-margin commodities. These are finished goods and industrial inputs that represent significant trade value. And the volumes are increasing. CPKC reported in its first quarter 2025 earnings that new Canada-Mexico direct trade contributed meaningfully to revenue growth. The company beat analyst expectations in part because of traffic that did not exist prior to the tariff environment. Analysts at Veritas Investment Research noted that CPKC's unique ability to touch all three nations while providing multiple port access points gives the company growth levers that competitors cannot match. The railway connects to ports in Vancouver, Montreal, the Gulf Coast, and Lázaro Cárdenas, Mexico. It can route shipments through whichever gateway minimizes costs and delays for customers. When Trump's tariffs made United States ports more expensive, CPKC simply redirected traffic to Canadian and Mexican facilities. The infrastructure to support this shift has been under construction for years. In addition to the Ottensmeyer Bridge, CPKC has expanded the Sanchez Rail Yard in Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. The yard now includes facilities for maintenance, customs inspection, and large-scale freight classification. It was designed to handle increased volumes resulting from nearshoring and tighter North American integration. Instead, it is handling increased volumes resulting from North American fragmentation. CPKC has also invested $800 million in new locomotives manufactured in the United States. On January 21, 2026, the company announced it expects delivery of 30 new Tier 4 locomotives from Progress Rail's facility in Muncie, Indiana, during the second half of 2026. These locomotives are part of a fleet renewal program that includes 100 units from Wabtec, built in Texas, and an additional 70 units also from Wabtec, expected in 2026. This is American manufacturing, but it is manufacturing that serves a railway, helping companies avoid American tariffs. The irony is precise. Trump's trade policies are generating demand for American-made locomotives that will be used to bypass American customs. The long-term implications extend beyond rail traffic. When companies discover they can trade between Canada and Mexico without American intermediation, they begin restructuring supply chains around that possibility. Procurement teams rewrite contracts. Logistics managers reroute shipments. Investment committees approve capital projects in locations that optimize access to the CPKC network rather than proximity to American markets. These decisions compound over time. Each shipment that moves through the land bridge makes the next one easier to justify. Each contract signed under the new routing reduces incentives to return to the old system. And each quarter of revenue growth for CPKC validates the business model for competitors considering similar strategies. Some will argue that in bond transit is not new, and that the volumes moving it through CPKC's land bridge remain too small to materially affect American trade dominance. This argument misses the momentum. CPKC did not create the land bridge overnight. It built the infrastructure methodically over 3 years, while Trump's tariff policies created the demand. The railway now has the physical capacity, the operational experience, and the customer relationships to scale this model rapidly. What matters is not the current volume. What matters is the trajectory. The cruel irony is that American communities along the CPKC corridor are not benefiting from the increased rail traffic passing through their regions. Trains move through Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, carrying goods that generate no local economic activity. No warehousing jobs, no distribution employment, no logistics services. The cargo is sealed and moving under bond. It contributes nothing to local tax bases or regional economies. Meanwhile, Canadian and Mexican cities connected by CPKC are experiencing investment growth as companies position themselves to leverage the land bridge. Monterrey, Mexico has become a logistics hub for firms seeking to access both Canadian resources and Mexican manufacturing without American tariff exposure. Winnipeg and Calgary in Canada are seeing similar dynamics as companies recognize the strategic value of CPKC access. The railway that was supposed to integrate North American commerce is instead facilitating its decoupling. And the United States, which occupies the geographic center of the network, is being reduced to transit space. CPKC built a 32,000-kilometer railway network connecting 3 nations. Trump's tariffs turned it into a bypass system. The infrastructure is operational, the demand is growing, and the business model is validated. Companies now have a proven alternative to American customs jurisdiction for Canada-Mexico trade. This is not a temporary workaround. This is a permanent reconfiguration of North American logistics architecture. The locomotives are being delivered, the bridges are operational, the yards are expanded, and the contracts are being signed. What began as a railway merger has become a case study in unintended consequences. Trump sought to use tariffs as leverage to reshape trade. Instead, he created the economic incentive for companies to build systems that function without American participation. CPKC did not set out to undermine American trade centrality. It simply responded to the incentives the tariff regime created. And in doing so, it demonstrated that in modern commerce, geography is not destiny. Infrastructure is destiny. Canada no longer needs to ask for permission.